This Knicks run has been the most exciting playoffs of my life. If you didn't know, I tend to root for New York's B teams, the Mets and the Jets. So I didn't get to fully enjoy the Giants Super Bowls or the Yankees in the World Series. As the only real NBA team in the Big Apple, the whole city has been on its feet and watching from the TV. Yeah, for a fan base that's become defined by these crazy social breakout videos from fans via accounts like Side Talk, it's kind of a given that these games have to be watched from home. When the price to just get into the Garden is in the hundreds of dollars for even regular season games, it's that much harder for diehards to get in the building unless they're a celebrity or wealthy or connected to the team in some way. Now, part of this is a Knicks problem. New York is the banking capital of the world. When all those Goldman analysts leave their terminals for MSG, they're able to bid higher and drive prices up. That isn't the case for most cities, and it's why New York teams suffer from this issue the most. Additionally, this is the Knicks we're talking about. First conference finals of the millennium, and a real chance at the title. There's an urgency attached because we don't know when the next bite at the apple will be. You might be able to say, oh, we'll be back next year, but that's probably what Knicks fans said in '99. So we have very strong demand with lots of capital for a very limited product. So what's the issue? Well, I find it strange that we just don't talk about this issue enough. Nobody in my life seriously considered going to one of these games because of the price of admission. We solely experience sports as a TV phenomena. Maybe you get out to one or two games per year, but we're far from the days when a regular fan could follow their team week in, week out. So what happened? Why did ticket prices skyrocket? How does this hurt us as fans, and what can we do about it? Let's find out. First off, a little background. Back in the day, to be a fan meant being in the stadium. In the days before extensive cable packages and high-priced TV rights, only a small handful of games were broadcast live on network television. Leagues even discouraged TV viewership by blacking out games in the team's home market. As late as 2014, the NFL wouldn't broadcast to the home city unless 85% of tickets had been sold for the game in question. The rules used to be even worse until Richard Nixon intervened. I'd tell you more, but I kind of want to make that a video in the fall, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, the experience and the price reflected one another. Fans paid a low price to sit in a concrete box, eating cheap hot dogs and drinking cheap beer. Sport was a working class activity, and you can see it from those crowds from back in the day. So what changed? Well, sports became a big business. When sports went on TV, the fan base could become effectively infinite rather than the 80,000 or so you could fit into a football stadium or the 20,000 for a basketball arena. That meant sports attracted more non-traditional fans from more walks of life. They were interested in going to games, and leagues were more than happy to welcome them in, as well as the increased prices they were willing to pay. That's how we went from run-down cement fortresses to these glitzy parks with luxury boxes as far as the eye can see. That's how we went from cheap beer and hot dogs to IPAs and gourmet concessions. And that's not to say all this has been bad. I like going to a clean arena. I like good food, even if it's going to cost an arm and a leg. Still, I think we lose something when we only cater to the wealthiest fans. Last fall, I attended a Penn State football game, and the atmosphere was electric. In part, this is because colleges build as big as they can, limit luxury seating, and sell tickets at a price that students can afford. That's why the legendary Mo Bamba clip from 2019 was able to happen. That crowd got on their feet against a conference rival and actually forced Michigan to take a delay of game penalty. They didn't care about networking or putting the game on social media. They were at the game for the game, and as a result, they affected that game. And I think what baffles me the most is that our media doesn't seem to care at all. I understand that most of their audience is following from the TV and that there are relationships to be maintained. I get all that. Still, when was the last time you read an article or saw TV coverage of a team putting up their prices? It's become so commonplace that we don't even get coverage. The only time in recent memory I can remember a team actually getting heat was when the Dallas Mavericks announced earlier this year that season tickets were going up by an average of 8%. Even then, that just feels like an attempt to hop on the anti-Dallas bandwagon that's developed following the Luka trade. And I don't think I'm asking for much here. Just look at the Premier League. In recent years, many football clubs in England have pivoted to ticket price hikes in order to sustain increased player spending. Nowadays, clubs like Manchester United can't count on revenues from Champions League football and have to find a way to fill in the gap. When United puts up their prices, it's headline news. Not just because it's Man U, but because it threatens the heart of the game. That football is a sport of the working class and of the local community. Nowadays, the football elites would rather their stadiums be stocked with casual fans paying hundreds of pounds to eat prawn sandwiches and occasionally checking on the game. There's a lot I don't like about the football community. To many of them, my opinion shouldn't matter based purely on my accent. Still, they're willing to organize, they're willing to fight. And that's something we need to try this side of the pond. I'm recording this script a day after Knicks Pacers Game 2, and there's a good chance you already know how the series ended by the time this is posted. I'm not sure how this series will end. After a heartbreaking Game 1 and Game 2, anything's possible. But what I do know is this. The biggest fans, the ones who have waited half a century or all their lives to see this team raise another banner in MSG, they won't be in the arena. They have been priced out and resigned to watching from home. I'm not trying to be a spoilsport. This is the greatest Knicks run in my lifetime, but this situation is unacceptable. James Dolan owns a building. We own the team.